Hey, family. You know, I just finished coming out of a study and I wanted to share with you some of the things that I have just gone through and some things that I just found. And, as I go down these rabbit holes, I just keep finding more things as I'm trying to understand more about this journey I'm on. I wanted to start off with my journal, which I have an e-sword, and I've showed it to you before. Um, and this is something that I'm working on in a video, and I thought that I might as well just go ahead and just do it as I'm working on it because um, I'm getting a lot of different information, and I'm having difficulty keeping up with it all. So I may as well just do these in sections as I put this together, as I'm finding it, and then this way I can go back and edit it if I want to, or whatever else. But in the meantime, I'm just doing this so that you can keep up with me as I move through this. And so I thought about that. Now that you're awake, one must never forget you were stolen and taken hostage, held against your will by a foreign nation. Nation is a word we're going to look at later on, but now that you're awake, never forget you were stolen and taken hostage, held against your will by a foreign nation. When I started on this journey 4 years ago, I had no idea I'd be seeing what I'm seeing right now. The hard part is looking at where you came from in order to see where you are. And sometimes you don't like what you see when you see where you are. That's truth. It's bitter. Sometimes it's sweet, but it's always has a shift for your consciousness if you're willing to take that leap of faith and go all in no matter what you find. And that right there, that's where it all falls down. So that's where we're going to begin. Now, Dr. Joyce DeGruy Leary gave a talk on certain parts of it, as well as others I'm going to use. But here I'm just going to use just some clips. But I encourage you to watch this whole thing for yourself. And when I put this video up, I'll also drop some links in so you can find it. But this is post-traumatic slave syndrome, and she's talking about race relations. So let's do it like this. Let's pick it up right here.
That part you don't have to worry about. But I kind of want to set the ground so that we can all advance and move forward together. Now, the reason I do that and the reason why I began that way is because there's an assumption, a fundamental assumption in a room this size with people very well educated, people very well exposed, that we're all entering this discussion at the same level. And we are not. I can guarantee you we are not. We all have our ideas and our beliefs, and then we all have our experience. For example, the people of color that are in the room, all the people of color that are in this room are arriving in this room at a different level because they have lived in this skin. And we're rarely given any kind of appreciation or understanding of what you have to live with walking through the world with this skin. So you kind of come in at a different level of awareness about the discussion. And then you have folks that come into this discussion that are educated around it, that are clear about it, but can't really empathize their way through it. In other words, it's not a feeling thing, it's a cerebral thing. So some people stay intellectual because that's a level of comfort. Nothing wrong with that. But very different from the person who lives in the skin. It is personal and it is emotional. Okay.
So, as she said, very different for the person who lives in the skin. It's very personal and it's very emotional. And when you start talking about this with different people, and you might have some Caucasian friends and you have this conversation with, they'll never understand where you're coming from because every day you wake up black. Every day you wake up having to fight your way through a system that's not designed for you. And then you'll hear people say to you, oh, but you can get an education, you can do this, you can do that, and yeah, you could, um, but then you have to look at quotas and things like that. You could participate in that program because that's what it is. It is a program. It's a federal government program where they actually count people. That's a whole different story. It's a whole different study. It's way different. But you know, the bottom line of it, the core of it is it's still all about us. Everything that's out there is still all about us, no matter what the program is, whatever. And I'll show you. But you know, we're all entering this at a different level. So, like she said, you can, you know, you can see the room, you know, and these were, you know, she's a doctor, so she's talking to other educated people, other doctors, other highly educated individuals. And what she said was that in that room, you would think that when they start talking about race relations, that they would all be entering the conversation at the same level, but they're not because they never woke up black. So let's go over here. Now, race relations, you know, people will tell you it's all good and to get over the past, but while they're saying that, they know nothing about the struggle you had to go through to get through the doors that were closed in your face. And they're blind to the automatic access that they have to social programs that you would not have access to. And when you marched and threatened to take away your spending power, they capitulated and gave you civil rights. Now, I'll say this about civil rights. Um, you shouldn't have to march to get civil rights. If you're a natural born citizen, you should have automatic rights. So if you don't have automatic rights and the Supreme Court has to grant you rights, and then every 50 years or so, they have to go back and vote on whether or not you can still have those rights, come on. Come on. Is anybody, they still do this. Every 50 years or so, they go back and they vote on whether or not you can still have those rights, whether or not you can vote. You know, I mean, that's all part of those rights. They have to go back and well, let's see, where did they behave themselves? Did anybody get out of line? Well, okay, we'll give them another 50 years, see how they act. You should not have to fight for civil rights if you're a natural born citizen. Okay, so something is wrong with that, you know, that dynamic. And we live with that every day. Okay, you don't see 6 or 7 black cops beating down a white kid in the street. You'll see the opposite. Okay, now don't get me wrong, we got some bad black ones out there too, but they've drank the Kool-Aid. They think that they're part of the system until they get out of line one day and somebody reminds them that they are not who they think they are. You're not on the team, you're a token because that's necessary. You got to have that on the team. Okay, so what I want to show you next is Mustafa Hefni is a naturalized Egyptian Nubian. Okay, he is a professional man by Western standards with degrees. He was told he was white and he protested. He's still protesting because he cannot be black in America. To be black in America is to be the descendant of a slave. You are not black when you come to America from anywhere else in the world. Okay? Let's look at Mr. Hefney's story, which is right here. Now, this was published CNN Interactive. Okay? Take a look at the date right here. The date right here is July 16th, 1997. Okay, I could blow that up, but never mind. Was posted around 4:22 Eastern Time from correspondent Joan McFarland. Now, this is Detroit. Detroit, okay? Look at where the man is. The man is in Detroit. What's in Detroit? Predominantly black folks, okay? An Egyptian immigrant is suing the U.S. government because they've told him he's white when his entire life he's been black. Mustafa Hefni was born in Egypt and has always been proud of his Egyptian culture and his African ancestry. But when Hefney immigrated to America, the U.S. government told him he was no longer a black man. Now, why would they tell him that? He said, I was not told by immigration that I was white until I passed the exam for citizenship, and then I was told I am now white, he explains. Hefney initially laughed when told of his new racial classification, but he's no longer chuckling. He recently filed suit against the United States government to get his race classification changed back from white to black. It hurts me. It definitely hurts me, Hefney says. It hurts me because I am unable to reconcile my reality as a black person. In addition to the emotional hurt, Mr. Hefney says that when the government changed his race, they also changed his social status. Okay? Definitely, I would have had more opportunity for advancement and even for hiring had I been considered black, he says. I was prevented from applying and requesting positions and other benefits for minority persons because I knew I was legally white. Okay, you can look this up. You can read it for yourself. Okay, but I just wanted to show you that. I want to show you that, and then I want you to see this. That's Mustafa Hefney. Check this out.
I am a black Egyptian. My father is much darker than I am. My mother is lighter than I am. In Egypt, people are identified by the religion first, not the race. So in Egypt, if you are Christian, you are a minority person. But if you're black, you're not a minority person. You are a part of the mainstream society. And I came from this background. And in Egypt, you identify as Arab and as Muslim. And in this country, when I first came, I identified myself as Arab American and Muslim first. And
Okay. Well, anyway, my thing is messing up on that. But look at this. The Center for Disease Control, this is the Office of Management and Budget, who handles Directive Number 15. And this is what Mustafa Hefney was suing the American government about, the race and ethics standards and federal statistics. This document talks about how they count people, specifically people of color. Okay, you can look this up online. Look, I'm not showing you anything. I'm not finding any screwball out there that's making screwy YouTube videos for. I'm showing you. Look, this is actual stuff. This is the CDC.gov. This is the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. This is the government, right? The CDC is handling the Office of Management and Budget. Management and Budget. Okay, so there's a whole different thing about your birth certificate because it's printed on bond paper. Bond paper is only used when you trade stocks. That's a whole different thing. But look at what it is, management and budget. What are you managing? You're managing the budget. The budget of what? You're counting the people. The people are the budget. This is the stock, okay? The working class is whatever, but you're counting the people. Look, you're counting all of the people by race. They're counting by race, and they're telling you how they identify who by what race. In this document, the federal government is doing, right? Right? For civil rights compliance. I mean, just on and on and on. You just look, it's the government document, okay? And this is the document that he was using to identify, because this is what they're using to turn this black man from another country white. He can't be black here because he's from another country. He's not the descendant of a slave. That's what's identified as black in this country, okay? This document right here, okay? So here is a MoveOn.org. They did a petition, okay, to help Mr. Hefney. Now look at this. An American citizen who holds Negroid features, who is an indigenous Nubian, should have the right to be classified as black instead of white in the United States of America, regardless of his or her geographical origin. All right, so they had a petition out there to petition the government about Directive Number 15 of the Office of Management and Budget. See, I'm not making this up. This stuff is out there. Okay, this man is fighting. Okay, so I want you to show you that, and I want to show you that, and I want you to see this. You know who that is? That's Mustafa Hefney. Okay? You saw the first picture. Okay? You see him now? See how long this man has been fighting? See how long he's been fighting to get reclassified. They will not let him be black. Okay? They won't. They certainly won't. If you read some of the other stories, they went to the point where somewhere in here, I don't know if it's this one. Yeah, here it is. Look, he's 61 now. He filed a suit in 1997 and used to get U.S. government to be reclassified, but his case was dismissed. He's 61. Now, you saw he was a much younger man in the other picture. He's been fighting for that long, right? Since 1978. This was in what? 2012. He was 61 in 2012, okay? He was 61 in 2012. This man is still fighting for his classification. Okay. All right. So I think that's madness, but there's a reason for that. Okay. I wanted to first show you that, he's a black man in Egypt, and you look at Egypt, they always want to show you that the Egypt is not black. This man is black. Hold on. Well, I might have to edit this one. But anyway, I had to get a dog that got away. But nevertheless, this man's been fighting for that long to get his status reclassified. So let me peek through my notes here because I kind of got thrown off by that little episode. And let's see what we have. That's Mustafa Hefney. Oh, so yeah, side note. I was 22. I was in LA. I was going to rent this apartment in this nice West Larchmont neighborhood. That neighborhood is predominantly white. I spoke to this lady on the phone, and she was, very, yeah, come right over. Everything was fine. So I pulled up in front of her house, or the apartment complex, and got out, walked up to the door. She knew immediately who I was, And as soon as I got up there, she was like, "Oh, well, I'm sorry, but, the place has been rented." And I'm thinking to myself, you knew I was coming the whole time. And if you had rented it before you even told me to come over, so you wouldn't have told me to come then. So, it was just obvious. And a Stevie Wonder lyric comes to mind. So the question was, 4 years ago, why does it appear to be all of a sudden in my lifetime there seems to be an agenda to kill a black man? But was it just any black man or just black men in general? So there's something that I realized years ago, and I experienced it personally, and I've heard it quite often. Well, you all look alike to me. And that's the truth to them. Because they actually cannot tell the difference between us and them. Marinate on that for a minute. And now just think about it if you can. While you marinate on that for a minute. Can you tell the difference? Here is truth. That is what saved a baby Yeshua. because they could not. They want something, and we're dying to give it to them. So let's talk about, I'm not sure if I want to go to that first. Yeah, let's do this. Signs of the end of the age. Let me do this because I was starting to work my way through this. This is a part of the study that got pushed into the video presentation that wasn't supposed to be there, but I'm gonna give it to you anyway because I'm gathering too much information and I can't keep up with it all. So, signs of the end of the age. Now look at this. I'm using the e-sword in this case. Okay. I just copied it into my journal because this is how I keep track. And again, I can save this because here's my save. It's going to save today, and I can have a running record of each one of these that I create. I tell you highly, if you're studying like this, you want to get an e-sword. Okay, so Matthew 24:3, and as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately. This is just the 12, saying, "Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, and the end of the world?" And Yeshua answered and said unto them, first thing he said, okay, listen. Take heed that no man deceive you. Take heed that no man deceive you. So is he talking about Creflo Dollar and T.D. Jakes and Joel Osteen? Is he talking about them? Or is he talking about this man that is to come, that Antichrist, that the main deceiver? But then he goes on to say, the many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and shall deceive many. And I'm telling you, I see that quite often in today's churches. I was telling someone not too long ago about the scripture that says that there are men who sneak in and lead silly women captive. Because, you find a lot of women in the church, very few men. And there are a lot of predators out there who go from church to church to church, preying on women. And I've seen it quite often. It's sad. You try to talk to the sisters, but he's a man of God. No, he's not. But that's something else, right? And shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you not be troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. All right? So check it out. Wars, rumors of wars. We're getting that now. Said, but be ye not troubled, for these things must occur. But the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, and pestilences, and earthquakes in diverse places, and all these things are the beginning of sorrows. And then they shall deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you. And you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall arise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax or grow cold. But he that shall endure until the end, that same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. There's a lot being said in there, and I was starting to break this down as and I remembered, I was like, as I was going through it, in my own study, it was like, it's a lot of work to do. It's getting late, and so if I don't get through it all, I have to just get some and we'll pick it up the next time through. Okay. Because I'll just keep this running and just keep adding to it, and we'll just pick it up the next time through. So I'm going to try to get through it all, but I had to go through this. Okay. So first I want to break this down. This is, like basically the baby food, when I'm trying to share with someone and breaking this down, I'm just this is the baby food. First of all, nation shall rise against nation. Okay, so the first word nation is a Greek word, ethnos, where we get our word ethnicity from, or ethnic from. Okay, Um, so it's probably from Greek 1486, a race, okay, as of the same habit, you know, that is a tribe, specifically a foreign, non Jewish one, usually by implication pagan, Gentile, heathen nation people, right? That's what a nation is. The ethnicity is the other tribes, anybody that's non Jewish. Okay, so if you're not a Jew, then you were the Goyim. You were the other ones, the Gentiles, the heathens, the other nations. Okay, then you have rise is the next word. It's also a Greek word. So I'll give you the Greek words and the numbers. You can look up in the Strong's yourself. Okay, Egiro. I don't speak Greek. I hope I said that right. Probably akin to the base of G58 through the idea of collecting one's faculties to awaken transitively or intransitively, that is, rouse, literally from asleep, from lying or sitting, from disease, from death, or figuratively from obscurity, inactivity, ruins, non existence. Awake, lift up, rise again, up, raise up, arise, arise again, arise up, stand up, take up. Okay? So, as I'm looking at this, you know, just like I said right there, it looks like the spiritual is being played out in the natural. That's the way it's always been. Okay? So, what I'm going to do is move through some things. I'm not going to attack this whole verse all at once right here because there's a lot of stuff that's interspersed in between. So first we look at nation against nation. So when a nation rises up against another nation, that's ethnos. That's the people against the people. Next you see kingdom against kingdom. That's not a nation is not a kingdom. A nation is people. A kingdom is a king's dominion. That's countries. That's, so you see countries against countries, and the people inside the countries are warring against each other. The countries are warring against each other. And then there's famines, and there's pestilences, and there's earthquakes in diverse places. And we have all of this going on, but it's still the beginning of sorrows, is what Messiah was saying. Okay? So this is kind of where we're going to sit as we move through this. First of all, I was showing you nation against nation. Okay, then we're going to start looking at kingdoms against kingdoms. And then we're going to start looking at the famines and the pestilences and the earthquakes and the diverse places. This is how I study. Okay, so I'm moving through this. And as I got through here, we're looking at nation against nation. Let me see if I brought it up. Let me see if I brought it up. Nation against nation. Nation against nation. Doesn't look like I brought it up. Let's see if it's still over here. Yes, right here. Let's look at this. Nation against nation.
I hate you.
Excuse me.
Back this up.
Oh, you think I'm afraid of you?
Back this up to the beginning.
I hate you.
Excuse me.
Oh, you think I'm afraid of you?
Never said that, sir.
I hate you.
Excuse me.
So at the end of that, I saw a little queen stand up, and she stepped up and was talking to the guy in the end. But look, that's nation against nation. Okay? That's nation against nation. When you start seeing this in the street, look, when you go out to the streets and you see what happened in Ferguson, you see black people lined up on one side, white people lined up on the other. There was quite a few white people lined up with the blacks standing with them because they understood what was wrong. You know, I'm not saying that all of the Caucasians out there are bad. I'm certainly not saying that. But what I'm saying is that society has taught, socially engineered. Hey, look, when you sit two babies side by side, babies don't see that issue. Babies don't see that. That's a learned behavior. They're taught that. And two children grow up side by side. They grow up thinking they're brothers. And they will kill you if you tell them that they're not. As long as they stay away from being taught that one is indifferent or better than the other. If one is better than the other, not indifferent, I'm sorry. But nevertheless, that's a learned behavior. Okay? So since that is a learned behavior, it is something that has gone down through time in the centuries. And so I have another study that I'm doing that kind of crossed over this one, or they kind of led into one another and kind of stayed on the same path for a minute. But it's a cross study, an offshoot of this one. However, we see that Mr. Hefney is fighting for his blackness, but there's something else that's going on at the center of this. As I started looking at maybe the why. Okay, so we got that from Mr. Hefney. We got this. And so this doctor here is at the University of California. And her thing is why white people are called Caucasians. And I wanted to pick it up right here because she mentioned some things. I'm just going to let her talk because she mentioned some things, and I just wanted to go. Okay?
And these images come from William Z. Ripley's Races of Europe, 1899, which was the Bible of race thinking in the early 20th century, was the Bible for the federal government in the era of closing down immigration from Southern and Eastern Europe. So those people standing behind my Brooklyn revelers, those people are or were Caucasians. Now, a word on naming. In both the popular literature and the scientific literature, the names of the people and the places slide around. So we talk about Caucasian, we talk about Circassian or Circassian, we talk about Georgian, and those terms function almost interchangeably outside of Russia. But in the historical period, that is before the 20th century, before the late 20th century, those people were synonyms of the most beautiful people in the world. And if you ask Georgians, that is from the Republic of Georgia, if you ask them now, is it true Georgians are the most beautiful people in the world? What do they say? Yes. I haven't met Circassians, and I haven't met...
I want to jump in right there because I want to show you something. I want you to see this. Okay. Here's Georgia. Okay. This is where she's talking about. Here's Russia. Here's Armenia. Okay. Here's Turkey. Here's Syria and Iraq. Okay. So you see where she's talking about? This is Georgia. This is what she's talking about. Right here. If you ask Georgians today, are they the most beautiful people in the world? They're going to say yes. Why do they say that? Why do they say that? Now, see, now we're crossing over into my other study. Let me show you something. Okay. Now we're crossing over into my other study. Let me back out of here so I can show you something. Okay, here's the area. I want you to see this area. Okay. We're hovering over Turkey. All right. Israel is over here. Egypt is in here. Okay. Here's the Gulf. Oh, here we go. It's coming in right there. Now you can see it. Google's loading up. Okay, so you can see, here's the West Bank, there's Jordan, Israel. Okay, you can see what's going on here, right? So look, here's Turkey. So we're just gonna drill down a little bit. I want you to see what we're doing. There's Georgia. Okay. I want you to see something here. We're just gonna drill down. So do you see where Georgia is, guys? You see this right here? This is Georgia. See that? See this right here? This whole country right here. I want you to see. See the line goes. The line goes across the top of the mountain range. See that? That's a mountain range. Okay, we're gonna drill down to that so you can see that's a mountain range. Okay, see that's a mountain range. Okay, I want you to pay attention. That's a mountain range. Okay. This is Georgia. Okay, this is what Russia said they were taking back, and this is where America went to put some missiles. Okay, look at the mountain range. Okay, that's the mountain range. All right. All right. So I can't seem to get the actual zoom that I want on here. I had Google Earth up, but with my screen recorder going, it wasn't downloading things properly. I'm trying to get something on the screen that I can't seem to get it out of. Anyway, this mountain range, you pull up Google Earth and look it up for yourself. I really want you to do that. It's called the Caucasus Mountains. Okay, this mountain range, that Georgia has a road going. It's a border. Okay, so when they came across the Caucasus Mountains, they came down here and settled Central Europe. They went all through here, but up in here is where the Khazars are from. So take a look at that. Okay, so we're going to get out of there. That's, like I said, that's another cross study. So let's jump over here to Jewel Pookrum. I want you to listen to something she has to say.
Now look at this. This is very important to recognize. In this magazine, they never exhibit any races. Primarily all the models, etc., all the ads are Caucasian in this scientific magazine. But this was very interesting because in this one series on tissue regeneration and all of the research that's been done to be able to recreate the human body, all of the models, as you will note, all have African and melanated physiologies and physiognomies. So it says here, muscular again. Within a decade or two, scientists will be able to create a genetic vaccine that increases muscle mass without exercise. Okay? Now, how do you think that they were able to get the original template of very bulky muscles like this to be able to copy it and be able to put it in a vaccine? Okay? And it was very clear to me that with all the athletes that are definitely free territory for all kind of blood studies, biopsies, etc., that it was quite easy for them to have access to this, to identify the genes that create the stimulus and hormones that cause the proliferation of our muscle mass and be able to put that in a vaccine. So it says that genetic muscle building vaccines would be essentially undetectable in your body once they give them to you. So it says in separate experiments over the past couple of years at the University of Pennsylvania Medical Center in Philadelphia and at the Royal Free University Medical College in London, the researchers have been creating this muscle building vaccine based on engineered genes. So therefore, we know what is happening to the individuals, especially the African males that are going into the hospitals in Philadelphia. It's real clear. Okay. Yeah. Now, this is very interesting. What you see here is a bladder. They have now been able to create what's known as bio-artificial bladders. Okay? This is being done at Harvard Medical School. Okay? And it states here that because the bladders and the uterine tissue are not too much different other than thickness, they also are now able to make wombs to measure. So there are over 10 million women who have had hysterectomies, which obviously they've created a tremendous market. And now they are able to engineer and grow these organs again from the patient's own tissues here. Okay? So that means that they don't have the issues with rejection, etc. But now, again, if it really was that important or insignificant, that your uterus isn't important, you don't need it, you're not going to have any more children, whatever else, that we can just take it out, why would they take all of this money and research to now be able to engineer uteruses to sell back to you? Okay? Again, in that interesting advertisement. Okay. That looks like a fish burn, doesn't it? Okay. Yeah. Right. It is theoretically possible to engineer organs such as livers, kidneys. Did you see what's up there? Breast. Isn't that interesting? Engineer breast and intestines. Now, you have to understand that they've already set it up for women to say that between the age of 35 to 65, 1 out of every 8 women in America can expect breast cancer. And the treatment that they have for you is mastectomy, along with radiation, chemotherapy, etc. But now they are able to genetically engineer breast. It's a big market. I've had women who've come to me who've had the abdominal flap rotation, etc. And one woman was just so upset because she described her breast as looking like little buttocks after they did her surgery, her prosthetic surgery. She was very upset about that. So we know that artificial implantation and the flap rotations to make natural breast prostheses is not being successful, which is why this is being financed to begin to bioengineer breast. Now, we know that they have an unlimited amount of breast tissue that they've acquired to be able to do this. And I'm sure none of these women ever gave permission for their tissues to go to these universities to participate in the generation of producing bioengineered breast, uteruses, etc. Yes, head transplants are also on the table. Yeah. Equipping old minds with new bodies. Whether you call it head transplants or body transplants, it's not outside of science's realm here. And you have to understand how it works. It's interesting. They've already done these transplants on chimpanzees. They've been able to live through it. Some chimpanzees have been able to totally regenerate the upper part of their body. They have recovered full use of their arms, etc., but they have not been able to walk yet. But they have taken the head of one chimpanzee and put it on another. Okay, so now there were some studies I read where they allege that some people have already put their heads in cold storage. They were told that they had terminal diseases, and so they put their heads in cryo storage waiting for this technology to be finally developed. So the key is that now they're asking for organ transplants. Mark my word, they will be asking for total body organ donation. or should I say they're asking for organ donations now, they will also be asking for total body donations. Now, this is a problem because they don't let this information come into the United States because there's such a big campaign for organ donation. But in other countries, I don't really like to use this term, third world countries, but in Asia, in India, there are families that sell other family members, their organ parts, kidneys, etc. That's very, very common to do that. People are kidnapped and their organs are removed for individuals who have the money that need this, etc. So it's really becoming a very, very interesting phenomena here about body parts. So I want you to really sit and digest this because your body is sacred and it also has a high value on it. So therefore, if you think that it's something that you don't want, there may be people already looking at you to basically and have already labeled parts of your body, then they will take it off your hands. This is very serious to look at, and most people are not aware of this. And especially when you go up into the hospitals, they are not seeing you as just somebody who's complaining about a sore throat or a headache or whatever.
So, you hear what she's saying, and when I hear her saying, that, it's making me think, about that movie Get Out. So, first of all, I want you to understand that this is not a new video. This video is pretty old, because Dr. Jewel Pookrum right now is like in her 70s, and you can see right here, she's a younger woman. So that means she was talking about this a while back, right? And today is like, November 16th, 2017. And she was talking about this way back then. Just like I showed you, Mustafa Hefney's been fighting his fight since 1979. Okay? So she's mentioning all of this stuff now, and you can see this happening now. This stuff is happening now. This is stuff they talk about it like it's nothing because they've been talking about it for so long. By the time they started talking about it, see, she was warning people, But by the time they started talking about it, it was so mainstream. It's in the movies. We got who is this? Who is it? Was it Johnny Depp who got his mind? No. Got his mind put into a computer. The to live forever. The who was that? Was it Robert Downey Jr.? We got all these transcendental movies and Prometheus. I was like, wow. What's the other movie they had out there with Tom Cruise where the triangle in the sky was running everything and he was an android and didn't know it? I mean, they're showing it to you. This is, what their projected future is, and very rarely do you see yourself in it. I certainly don't see me in it. But, they're taking body parts for a reason. For a reason.
Okay, that's why before you can open your mouth, they've already got blood, urine, and everything else. Okay? Now, we know for a fact that we can now grow new nerve tissue. And it's very interesting because once they discovered that the only antidepressant that they were putting people on, known as Prozac, was the only antidepressant, and this was a big mistake on their part, that also stimulated new nerve tissue and the formation of a new brain, they had to then formulate a way to force people to stop taking it. Because, see, you have to understand that if you're depressed and anxious, and then you're able to move out of that state of reality into a much more pleasurable, optimistic state, and you then reform your brain and grow new brain cells with that outlook, you permanently will hold that outlook. And you have to understand that a person who is optimistic, a person who is at comfort and peace with themselves, is very difficult to control and is automatically a magnet to draw to them whatever it is that they desire. See, most people do not get what they desire because they spend so much time in agony, mentally worrying, negative thoughts and communication with self, that they have no magnetic field to draw this to them. So if you're happy and you have a thought, immediately it'll manifest. So this is very dangerous, and this is why they had to really give this drug a bad name. They don't even talk about Prozac anymore. They don't even want you to think about it. They got a bunch of other drugs that they want you to take because this was the only one that grows new brain tissue. Very interesting. So therefore, we know that we can now grow brain tissue. So there's no cells in the body, no organs that cannot be regenerated. None. Now, I do want you to know, and I do want you to understand very clearly that there is a lot of motivation for graduate students, medical students, and postdoctoral professionals to see you as revenue. These advertisements for research is present all the time, where they are asking that you submit proposals where you can basically wind up getting sometimes they will give up to $5,000 to $10,000 per person that you're able to enter into the study to do this research. There's a lot of money here. And so unless you are looking at these professional magazines, you wouldn't see that they are actually wanting you to begin to do research on your patient population. So we know for a fact that for most of these studies that were done, the patients never consented to it, but the hospitals had already made agreements with other institutions such as universities and private research centers to send your blood specimens and tissue specimens to them for a price. And with that, they also included ages, names, diseases, etc., so that these organizations could better elucidate what was really going on with their tissues to develop this kind of technology. So the key here is, did you know that they were doing this? Does your doctor tell you that your tissues may be going somewhere else other than the hospital, other than the pathologist, etc., that you're going to be enrolled in a study because our hospital is affiliated with a research center that are doing a number of studies, etc., and let you know that you can get a copy or give us your opinion? No, you're never told. And this is a serious problem, and we'll see why. So again, this is a question that you have to ask yourself. Once they draw your blood, once a biopsy is done, once you give your urine, who owns that? Who owns that? Now, I thought this was very interesting when I saw this. Yeah. And see this? This was in your friendly Newsweek. Okay. And this is entitled The Gold Rush. And on his forehead is stamped Biopharmaceuticals Genetic Patent 2000 United States Industry. Okay, isn't that interesting? Okay, so this is the gold rush. Not only is his mind the gold rush, but also his DNA. Because see in the background here, you see the money signs? But see, this is something known as gel electrophoresis. And this is where we can take the protein from an individual, from the nucleus of their cells, and we can actually put it into this gel, and their DNA will actually line up itself. These are the genes. And that's why we can basically then take the genes from someone else, take your genes, and we can take those gels and lay them right next to each other. And if they're the same genetic makeup, the lines will be in the exact same place. So this was not just a decorative background back here. Those people who know, recognize that it's not only the mind, but it's also this individual's chromosomes and DNA that is the gold rush. Okay? Oh, yeah, clearly. Okay. So someone up here said that he was melanin dominant and African.
That's right. He was a melanin dominant and African. And it's about the melanin. The whole spiritual war, the whole rise, the whole fight, the whole thing is all about the melanin. There were two brothers, Jacob and Esau, that fought. That war was fought physically here on the planet between those two brothers, but it's a spiritual thing that's going on. So it's happening in the heavens, and it's being played out down here. Always has been, always will be, until it comes to fruition. So we just have to make our way through this as these things unfold around us. The Bible tells us that there will be this one world system. It just doesn't tell us about all the steps that will be taken to get us there. And most of those steps are laws and statutes and different little things that they use to incrementally move it forward. And the picture is so big and it's so vast. There's a lot going on there. So I wanted you to see there had been some years between these videos. I'm going to show you the second one. And let's see if this is Dr. Yafa Bey. Dr. Yafa Bey is speaking now, today, in our time. We can see that Dr. Pukum was speaking in the 80s or so, 90s, and now we have somebody who's speaking in the 2017s, 2016, 2015.
Let me give you first a major definition. We've all heard the term melanin, melatonin, but the definition of M-E-L, mel means dark, it means strong, it means great and numerous. It also means honey. Now, the reason it's important for people to know that the word mel means honey is because there's a word called honian, spelled H-O-N-I-A-N. And remember, vowels are removable, and interchangeable. The word honian means to abuse or revile. Now, there are people out there that revile us because of something that we have that they don't, and as such, they have chosen to abuse us regularly because they're jealous of what we have that they do not have, which, by the way, they had a few hundred years to officially acquire what we have, meaning while we were asleep and generously giving our genetic strands of CTA, also called DNA, to people through hybridizing, half-breeding. I hear static. Is that a feedback? I don't know if anyone else hears it or not. Is that coming from my end?
I don't hear it. If anybody hears it, could you please write to me in the chat room if you hear static? I'm not getting it on this end.
Okay, I just want to make sure that people can hear me because I'm hearing a static feedback. But while we were in our unconscious, unaware, unawake state of self-hatred to the point that we hated being melanin-rich so badly that we gave away our genetics, claiming to marry lighter, brighter, and whiter. We wanted prettier children with light skin and good hair, whatever that is. Our self-hatred has devolved to the point that melanin-rich people, and I mean youth, are spending $17,000, $18,000, $19,000 to go to European surgeons and allow them to cut into their eyeballs to get rid of the brown and give them eye implants iris implants to make their brown eyes blue and green. That's how bad things have gotten for my people. And I know that has something to do with a lot of the subliminals. But I'm saying all of that to say, while we were in this self-hatred mode, and believe me when I tell you, we are coming out of it now. Not as fast as I like, but faster than I think the enemy realizes. But when we were in that state, we were giving away our genetics. And while we were giving away our genetics, trying to have what we thought were prettier children, this was the opportunity for these people that have Honian revile and abuse for us to actually get grafted back into the melanin-rich family and become melanin-rich themselves. Meaning, if I am melanin-rich and I'm a sister and I get with you for whatever reason, because you raped me or because I'm trying to survive or whatever my reasoning is, be it male or female, and I'm having sexual relations with someone out of the race, and I am allowing myself, or as a male, I'm allowing you to have a child by me that would make your child melanin-rich, that is your opportunity to take that melanin-rich child, and as that child grows up, have them be aware that they need to go and reunite with someone else that's also melanin-rich so that their child comes out darker. And that child needs to get with someone melanin-rich so that that child comes out darker.
So I knew that I was not the only one that had that thought and a thought like that. And so as I started looking at this, I started finding out that, yeah, that's kind of the way it's going. I saw the movie Get Out. And the movie Get Out is kind of a hard hit straight to reality. I had to take that movie in about 3 different sittings because there's quite a bit of imagery that's going on, a whole lot of subliminals, and just if you watch a movie and you don't watch it as entertainment, you're going to get bombarded with stuff because you already know what you're looking for, and it's just slamming you. It's everywhere. So I had to go at it in 3 different sittings. I couldn't take it all at once. It was too much. And a few different scenes in particular were just like over the top because they were highly spiritual and supercharged. It was just crazy. But looking at that movie, first of all, to say that there is a sex slave trade that's known. There is one. I don't know if it's just specifically black men that's being kidnapped, but I do know that there's quite a few different notifications that are going around indicating that people are being snatched and not being seen. And, it's in various different cities around the country. It's like a wave of it that's going on. And I notice that it's like at certain times of the year it happens, where a lot of these occur. So maybe it is for the slave trade, the sex slave trade. I don't know. But I know that that I am hearing about it more and more. So as I move forward, I wanted to mention that. I'm sorry. I wanted to mention that, and we can see that you can see this is Melanin Thief. You can look it up. Here's the individual that has it right here. So if you want to grab it, you certainly can. It's a really good interview, 1 and 2. I really suggest listening to it. Okay, so that was Jewel Pookrum. I think I want to go back to her one more time as well. But let me see if I got where I wanted to get to before I had to move on. Let me check yeah. Okay, so yeah. All right, so this is war. Okay, so what I just showed you, those are the things that are happening to us as a people. Okay, I want to dig deeper into this. I'm not going to go too deep. I'm going to keep moving because I got to keep moving through the scripture. But I wanted to show you some of the key elements that, as I'm moving through, as I'm studying, I can't, just, stop and cruise and kick it and dig right now. I'm trying to show you as I move through. Um, as I'm reading, I see, wars and rumors of wars. I start looking for wars and rumors of wars. I use the internet. I have to have good filters. I got to push out all the negative, inconsistent, sideways, babble talking, whatever idiots out there, and look for the relevant, pertinent stuff when I'm looking for wars and rumors of wars. I have to look, when I'm looking for nation against nation, I'm looking for real life stuff, right? You can go online and you can just see fights every day. You'll see black people fighting white people. You'll see white people fighting black people. You'll see Chinese fighting Mexicans. You'll see Mexicans fighting whites. I mean, you can just look at fights, and there's fights. I mean, it's nation against nation out there, okay? I'm not saying be afraid or any of that. Anybody can say anything. Anybody can threaten. I mean, barking dog. I don't worry about a barking dog until he bites. You can bark all you want to. I don't worry about barking dogs until they bite. Okay. Now, if I get bit, I get bit, but I bite back. Okay. That's the difference. But nevertheless, I'm looking for nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. Okay. As I am doing this. And then I start looking for where there are famines. I start looking for where there are pestilences, earthquakes in diverse places. And we have those. And that's how I move through. So I first wanted to show you that as I'm moving through, I had to stop and copy and paste this in here, so you could see it. But I go through the Greek, and I look at what it is. So, and then Dr. Jewel Pookrum, she talked about that. I wanted to take you there, that this all thing folds back around to what is it about destroying the black man? What is it about trying to kill the black man, right? We see there is a rise against us that is coming. Right now, it's like a gentle wave that's happening, but it's still happening in the background. But listen, when they all stand up, Dr. Jewel said, and Dr. Pookrum said in one of her lectures, as a matter of fact, in that lecture, she says, when this occurs, don't expect the military to be there to protect you, because they're not there for you. And as I dig deeper into this, I start finding out, so what's really going on with the Hebrews. If we're not the Hebrews and they say that they are, I'm looking at this now, then who really were the Hebrews? And how many times in history has someone impersonated the Hebrews? Was there another time in history when people impersonated the Hebrews? Yes, there was another time in history when people impersonated. Before the Jews even came on the scene, there was another group in history that impersonated the Hebrews. And here they are right here. The Assyrians and the Kurds and the Jews. Do you see this area? See this area? Look at this area. All right? See this map? This is what we were just looking at on Google Maps. This same area. Look, there's Georgia. There's Georgia. There's the Caucasus Mountains, where the Caucasians come from. This is what she's talking about. Those people in Georgia. They came across the Caucasus Mountains when she showed you those pictures of what they look like, what real Caucasians look like. So what you call Caucasian today is not Caucasian, right? And so the Assyrians who were over here, listen, as the battles rage around Mosul, it is relevant to recall that what we now call Kurdistan was actually the core of the old Assyrian Empire. The one that carried off the 10 lost tribes. Indeed, there is quite a lot of literature to suggest that the Kurds are descended from Israelites. Benjamin of Tudela died 1130 in Castile, who visited them, thought that had not the Byzantines forcibly converted one half, and the Muslims the other half, then they would still be Jewish. He said, several customs they all adhered to that could only have come from us. Now, there's a thought. Anyone volunteer to rescue Kobani? Now, this is written by, obviously, a Khazarian Jew. But that's okay, because Khazar is up in that area anyway. But this is, like you said, one half ended up Jewish, or the Byzantines had the Christians. One half ended up Christian, the other half ended up Muslim, and in the middle here you got these Jews. Okay, what would have been Jewish, right? But that's what the Khazarians had to choose. So there it is, right there. It's all over the internet. I mean, you can dig stuff out. Look this up. What is this? November 16th. Today. So, I'm going to wind it down right there, and stop at, at the nations. And I've already talked about the kingdoms. Okay, hold on here. Let me go back into all these. Okay, so back in my e-sort, but I've already talked about the kingdoms, and so we'll move further deeper in on the next one as we move toward we see famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. Some of those earthquakes have caused tsunamis that a lot of people have lost their lives in, and all of these are the beginning of sorrow. So we're going to leave it right there, and we're going to pick it back up, because that next part, really leans on where we are right now, and I want to catch a lot of that part of "Ye should be hated of all nations for my name's sake." It means every race on the earth is going to hate you because of who you are, especially when they find out who you are. So we'll get that on the next one, folks. I want to thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you so much. And I didn't think I was going to get through it all. I've still got 3-4 more pages over here of notes to go through, that never made it to the screen that I was going to try to share with you. But that's why there's got to be another one. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I didn't go too far off, and we'll pick it up more on the next side.